From now onwards, whenever you are going to study about history of architecture, you need to understand there are 4 to 5 points on which the architecture of a place actually depends. There is a dependency of architecture of every place that we have on earth. Now, I'm going to tell you the major points which are there functionally, and I'll try to relate all those points with the points that you have mentioned. So, सबसे पहला, the very first point on which the architecture of a place depends is the geography of a place. And by geography, we mean the topography, the type of land that they have, the type of land that you have. You might have mountains, you might have river, maybe somewhere you'll have plains. So by topography we mean different kind of plains, different kind of lands. Geography like soil conditions, it can be your contouring, everything that is related to a landform comes in your geography. And let's discuss two types of lands. Maybe the first one is your mountainous and the second one is your plain. Have simple foundation which can be known as raft foundation, or maybe you have isolated foundation. All the simple kinds of foundations are found in your plains. But when we talk about mountains, in mountains we have a foundation which is called pile foundation, and this foundation is required in mountains because we have all the contours here. If we use the same kind of foundation that we use in plain, then the building that we construct on the mountains or in the contoured area, it will not sustain, it will not be that durable in that area. So that is the reason why we have different kind of construction techniques according to the different type of topography or geography of that place. Okay, so now the next point is geology. By geology, we mean the study of rocks is called geology. And by study of rocks, we mean the material, the kind of material that we find in that area. So the point of material is discussed here. Now, for different areas, we have different materials. For example, in India, we have marble in Rajasthan, right? We
Yes.
find
Yes,
lot
ma'am.
of marble in Rajasthan. In yes, in Himachal we find lot of stone and wood, right? And in Punjab areas we have much of clay, so we have mud bricks and normal bricks that we have. So according to different kind of areas, we have different types of availability of materials. So the type of material which is available in a particular area also defines the architecture of the place. Now most of the buildings that you will find in the Rajasthani area, you will find the buildings are mostly having marble in it. But if we import this marble in our area, that will become expensive. So when you go to Himachal, you'll see there are buildings which are completely made up in stone and wood. You have a wooden rafter, and then the inlay is done with the stone. So this thing is locally available in that area. That's why these people prefer using both wood and stone. But you won't find this kind of architecture in the plain areas like your Punjab, because stone is not locally available there. That's why geology is one of the aspects, or we can say the material availability is one of the aspects that becomes the actual factor of dependency of architecture of that place. Okay, the third point is climate. Now, all the climatic conditions again define the construction techniques or the type of buildings that you will find in particular area. Now, again, we'll talk about plains and mountains. Now, we have somewhat colder region. We have mountains are quite cold and plains are quite hot. We are talking in general. So you'll see some of the buildings in plains which have single flat roof. Most of the buildings in plains have flat roof. And we see, when we see the buildings that we have in mountainous areas, they mostly have sloped roofs. And why is that? Because in mountainous regions we have rainfall plus snowfall. So it is advisable that we give sloping roof, so that if we have rain or if we have snow, the water can directly seep down our roofs and it can go in the earth. But in plains, since we have less rainfall, we have no snowfall, so it is not required to have a sloping roof. Otherwise, suppose if we start having flat roofs in mountains, what will happen there is, suppose we start having flat roofs in the mountains, if the snow and water comes on the flat roof and the volume is very high, it can lead to dampness that we call moisture inside your building. So for avoiding these kinds of problem that we can face inside a building, we tend to provide sloping roof in the mountainous regions. On the other hand, we have flat roofs in the plains, because there's no rainfall, there's less rainfall and no snowfall. So flat roof can easily serve the purpose of a roof, and this can be used as a terrace. You can walk here, since in mountains these slope if you have a sloping roof, it cannot be used for walking. You don't have a space on the upper floor, but still, since we have to solve the purpose of rainfall and snowfall, that's why we have to provide a sloping roof. The second thing that comes in climatic factor is providing the size and the number of windows. Now, in hot regions, we tend to make small windows and less number of windows. On the other side, in the buildings which are in the mountains, we tend to give big windows and large number of windows. And why do we do this? Because this thing invites light and heat. The more the opening, the more the size of the opening, the more light I will get inside the building, and with more light I'll get more heat inside the building. And the opposite goes for plain. We don't need much of heat inside a building, that's why we give small number of windows as well as small windows in size. So this is how climate affects the type of building that we have in different kind of regions. Done. This is the third factor. Fine. ऋतिक, जो आपने कंस्ट्रक्शन टेक्निक कहा था ना, कंस्ट्रक्शन टेक्निक भी आपका आ जाएगा जियोलॉजी में. The type of materials that we have, how construction technique will accommodate in this point. Because now, like I'm saying, that in Himachal we have wood and we have stone. So for binding that up and making up a complete building, we need to have a construction technique. We have different types of techniques that we use. One of the examples is Kathkuni construction. In this, we use a big wooden panel, and then above it, we use all the stones. The pointing is done, then again, one layer of wood is spread out on this. One of the other examples is Dhaji wall. In this, the wooden panels are used like this, and the inner filling is done with stone. Something like this is done in Dhaji wall. So according to different kind of materials that are available in a particular place, the construction technique also varies. So that point can be catered inside your geology, because construction technique is indirectly related to the type of materials that we have in a place. The type of material will define the type of construction technique that we use for making the buildings for the same. The next point is religion. Now, religion is one of the major factors, though, according if we talk about functionality of a building, all the points that we discussed above, these must be the major factors of defining the architecture of a place. But religion has become one of the major aspects of defining the architecture of a place. Okay, I'll ask you one question. You have to tell me a famous building of India. You have to tell me about the famous building that we have in India. So these are some of the important buildings of our country. Okay, now let's talk about Rome. Now, what I want to highlight here is, in India, if I talk about Taj Mahal, Taj Mahal is a tomb, right? So tomb was major feature of Mughals, and a tomb is used to bury a dead body of a person. That was the kind of religious practice which was done by Mughals. So this Taj Mahal becomes a religious building. When we talk about Meenakshi temple, it itself is a temple. That means it is again a religious building. Shore temple, Sun temple, both of them are religious buildings. Now, in Rome, St. Peter's Rome is a basilica. Again, basilica is a religious building. What is Pantheon? Pantheon is a again religious building. It is kind of a temple. Pantheon is kind of a temple. So again, it is a religious building. In pyramids, now but the main focus of Egyptians were life after death. They had the concept of life after death. That's why they were more focused on building pyramids, beautiful things over the grave of a person, because they thought that when a person dies, if we keep so many luxuries, so much of money or jewels with the dead body of a person, if we bury everything with the person, he will take all those things to the next life. So this concept gave birth to the buildings like pyramid. But again, this is something religious in nature. So religion is one of the major factors which defines the architecture of a place. So in India, we have Taj Mahal, we have different temples, and in our history, we have to study about different buildings for knowing about the culture and tradition of a place. So for every place, the important buildings that we see, they are mostly related to the religion. That's why religion becomes very important when we talk about a certain architectural technique or architectural construction techniques of a particular place. The last aspect is our social condition. Now, all your traditions, all your cultures will, for example, we were talking about Egypt. In Egypt, they believed in life after death. So, this was their culture. So, they had buildings which were made on this concept. And then, if we talk Rome, Romans had very rich culture. They believed in democracy. They believed in a fun lifestyle. They were the ones who enjoyed the most. So Romans had a social culture, fun lifestyle, democracy, and they were free to live. So they had lot many spaces which were like theater. Since they promoted outdoor life, they were more interested in enjoying the life to the fullest. So they had many buildings like theaters, then they had shopping malls also, they had gymnasiums, they had gyms, they had several other buildings which defined the social condition of a place. So this also becomes one of the factors which define the architecture of a different place. In India, we had the culture of sophistication. So when we had princely states, when we had princes, kings, and all, so we had darbar halls, we had palaces, and many other buildings. So social condition of a place also defines the type of building that that gets birth according to a different kind of condition. So these five are the major factors which define the architecture of a particular place. Before studying any subject in architecture, in history of architecture, you need to focus on these 5 points, which can actually give you the functional aspect of different buildings, how they came. So now when we are going to start with the Egyptian architecture, with every building, I'll tell you how this building came. If we study a temple, this temple came in Egyptian architecture. If we study a mastaba, how mastaba came, why mastaba came. There was a building called ziggurat. How did it get its birth? Ziggurat kyun aaya? Why did mastaba come? Why did pyramid come? So before studying any type of building that we have on our planet, you always need to understand does it on what factors does it depend.